capes, and conundrums. Pavel stretches in the stillness. The tapping of the keyboard and swearing under the breath makes Pavel consider his new partner a bit. Silicon Blake has an interesting background. Pavel made a point of looking into it. The man was genetically human currently, but he had been born of a brain scan of a Tret man. Sionis Blake, the man's father, legally. Silicon had made the jump from a fully synthetic body to a human clone body with data ports about 2 weeks ago, freshly after his training as an Undaunted. Legally, he was considered to still be both a Tret and a synthetic. But for all practical purposes, he was a human cyborg, one who wasn't used to the sheer requirements of his body. Pavel suspected a good chunk of his bad attitude was the fact the man was only eating once a day, and only small portions. The morning shift started shortly after breakfast and went right to lunch. So when Pavel went for lunch, he went alone at first before doubling back. "Hey, we're supposed to be together. Like it or not, you're coming with me to the mess hall," Pavel says, and the man groans in frustration and closes his computer. "Fine, but I'm taking my damn work with me," Silicon states as he stands. "Fair enough." Pavel states, and the walk goes in silence. There's a small, out-of-the-way table near the edge of things, and Silicon starts working again, only to be interrupted when Pavel comes back with 2 trays. "You're not eating enough." "What? The hell is going on?" Silicon demands as Pavel forces him to take the laptop off the table and puts a tray full of food down in front of him. "I looked up your medical profile." "Why?" "Because humans can eat what other beings consider biohazards. And if we were going to have forced contact, I didn't want to accidentally kill you with onion breath, which is something that can make a feely very sick and cause a standard Tret to vomit," Pavel explains. "Okay. However, I noted that you volunteered for the Endurance Program, an initiative to give other races more staying power akin to humans." "Yes, and it's worked very well. I've nearly doubled my productivity," Silicon says, and Pavel nods. "It did, however. You're not feeding yourself enough. Your breakfast is big enough for a breakfast. You need lunch and dinner, too." "What?" Silicon demands. "To put it in mechanical terms, you're operating on emergency power. This cripples many major systems. You need to fuel up more consistently," Pavel states before pointing to the loaded plate. "What I grabbed you is called a ham and cheese sandwich. To its side is kettle chips with sea salt, opposite is a garden salad, and the cup of brown substance is a dessert called chocolate pudding. It's a small lunch, but a decent one. Consider this the minimal intake." He then pulls out a pair of large water bottles and places them on the table. "You also need to hydrate more. Water is converted into the lubricant of your physicality, and without it, the whole system will fail." As Pavel had been speaking, Silicon had pulled out a bioscanner and gone over everything before pausing on the salad. "Why is there an acid here?" "You've got stronger stuff in your stomach. Turn that scanner on yourself," Pavel says dismissively, as he grabs his larger and much more loaded sandwich off his own plate. 3 types of meat, hot mustard, lettuce of some kind, and tomato with Swiss cheese. Good stuff. "Look, if this is some kind of ill-conceived peace offering..." "Peace nothing, you're hangry half the time. Humans get aggressive in times of desperation. Basic instinct. You have that instinct now, so even if you aren't consciously looking for a fight, you're ready to haul off on someone because you need food." "Really?" "Yes, really. Now eat for God's sake." "I've had breakfast. 2 of those pancakes, a fruit cup, and a glass of water. That's plenty." "Nowhere near enough for breakfast, let alone breakfast for someone in a high-stress job. Besides, breakfast in only 1 of 3 meals." Pavel counters and Silicon glares at him. "Seriously, eat. It will help." Silicon gives him an odd look before grabbing his sandwich and taking a bite out of it. Pavel concentrates on eating his own much larger meal, and he finishes within 10 minutes. The spice in the mustard forced him to slow a little, and he sits back to watch as Silicon goes at the pudding cup. For what the man claimed of not needing the food, he outright inhaled it. So? Pavel asks as Silicon finishes up taking a swig of his water. Feel better? Yes. Silicon admits with his eyes screwed shut in frustration. I just thought it was apex aggression, not hunger and desperation. You need thousands of calories a day. Also, don't forget to use the bathroom when you need it. Our digestive tracts are powerful but not perfect. You will need to let it out. Really? You're telling me to excrete? How simple do you think I am? Silicon asks tartly. I think that you're used to living in a body that required only energy and only have memories of a body that needed very little in the form of physical nourishment. So I'm not making any assumptions and telling you everything, Pavel says as he finishes off his own water. Now, I've got something to do. Our lunch break ends in a half hour and I'll see you back at the test chamber for the remainder of that shift. Then we're moving on to mine. I hope you're ready to play spotter. Oh, goody. Using chemically propelled murder tools to not actually kill. You have a problem with your orders? Pavel asks him, and he sighs. No, I'll see you in a half hour, Silicon says, and Pavel nods before taking his own tray, then grabbing Silicon's depleted one and taking them both out. Damn it, I hadn't thought that humans would require so much damn food. I'm pulling an axiom to feed, so why aren't I being sustained? And it was back to the programming. Silicon was working faster and actually humming to himself a bit, so that seemed all right, but not ideal. Pavel was really starting to get bored, though. After yesterday's test of things, the drones had not been reactivated, as Silicon seemed to be of the belief that things were a purely programming issue. If they were great, the problem is that there was no way of telling if things were just a programming issue or something mechanical. Pavel pulls out his communicator and brings up the specs of the drones. They were basic, off-the-shelf prosthetic bodies designed to be piloted by a person, but a program in its place instead. They had been reinforced and upgraded a few times, but none of it seemed too egregious. Similar codes and programming had been used in traveling shows and other such bits of entertainment to serve in the role that a minimum wage worker would slowly have their soul worn away doing. The repetitive, thankless tasks that need to be done over and over and over again. Providing a low-level opponent to be beaten in a fist fight or outsmarted by someone sneaking around shouldn't be too hard. A video game AI could get the behaviors down, and then it was controlling the body, which was where Silicon and several other people were stuck. There was something wrong with their sense of balance, and often they struggled to stay standing at all of them, despite the code. If it was a gun, I'd be checking it for cracks, Pavel mutters to himself. What was that? Silicon asks, looking up from his laptop. All the drones are failing in the same way. You think it's coding, but if it was a gun, I'd be checking for structural damage. These aren't guns. But both are machines. I think the hardware should be tested a bit. The coding has a lot of eyes on it. But the hardware? The hardware was bought from a reputable source and passed their safety inspections. Safety means that my necklace breaks if someone tries to strangle me with it, Pavel says, and Silicon pauses and looks up at him. Opens his mouth to say something, then reconsiders and giving the nearest drone a look. Grab a toolkit. We're taking it apart, he says as he closes the laptop. It takes 5 minutes to carefully take apart the chest of the drone and start examining the internal components. Here. These little gyroscopes are all over the place in the drone to give it a kinesthetic location sense. If you're mentally linked to it, then you can feel the direction of down from both gravity and the internal scope. Silicon explains, and Pavel gives one a tap. It does not move. You have got to be kidding me. Is this jammed? Pavel asks, as he pokes it again before reaching in with his fingers and feels. There are metal filings in here. A dirty production line? When he removes his finger from the gyroscope, it moves easily in response. He brushes out a few shavings, and Silicon is muttering something foul under his breath as he tests the other gyroscopes. 1 in every 5 of them are jammed in some way, and after they clear out the chest, they put the plating back on and move to the other limbs. The pattern holds. One stuck internal gyroscope in every batch of 5. It takes a full hour to clean out them all and give the internals of the drone some extra cleaning. It's sealed back up again, and Pavel is tightening the last screw as Silicon is tapping away at his laptop again. Okay, take a step back. Let's see if that helped. If nothing else, it'll fail faster with it knowing which way to fall. Pavel notes as he steps away and the drone activates. It sits upright the same as it could before and then turns over and stands upright. There was markedly less wobble this time, and Silicon sends a command. It snaps, its arms out, and begins to turn. Hey, that did it. Shit, we need to clean out all the drones. Silicon curses. We report this in and get 50 other guys to help. This is not a 2-man mission. Pavel says wryly. Not to mention, the quartermaster is going to be looking to kill someone for having shit product forced on us. They do not take this shit lying down. The sales rep will either be looking for a new job or finding a new fetish by the time those monsters are done with her. Silicon notes. Hey, think you're ready to test it for fighting ability? Sure thing, Pavel says, closing up the toolbox and then sliding it away with a foot. Send it. All right, let's test its tracking and offense. I need to dodge the attacks and move around the drone. Get it to follow you. Silicon says, sending the command, and the drone suddenly snaps its head towards Pavel and then turns in one movement. That was a little stiff. I'm going to have to iron things out a little. The drone opens with an attempted haymaker, and Pavel hops to the side and keeps going until he's standing behind the drone. It follows him the whole time and then tries a cross. He fades back and takes a few steps away, and it keeps pace as best it can. As the drone goes for a grab, he uses Axiom to leap clean over it and land on the other side, then weaves to the side to avoid the snap kick as the logic tree self updates, and the drone gets a fraction better at fighting. There we go! Living code. Finally! Silicon cheers. Start deflecting its attacks. Block and parry. I need to see how it responds to that. Sure thing, Pavel says, and he swats away the next attempted haymaker. Interesting, okay. It's correlating with that code chunk, Silicon says as Pavel blocks 2 jabs boxer style and prevents it from grabbing onto him. Hey, that's weird. Can you hit it back? Don't break it or nothing, but see how it responds. This good? Pavel asks, as he palm thrusts it in the middle of the chest and Silicon lets out a confused sound. The drone stumbles back in response to the light blow and regains its balance. Well, how the hell did that happen? Do it again, Silicon says, as he squints at his screen. Pavel rushes the drone and then gives it another, slightly firmer, smack in the middle of the chest. Silicon swears under his breath. This is weird. All right, I'm deactivating the drone. Can you drop it off in its charging port? Easy enough, Pavel says, as he catches the suddenly powered-off robot and hefts it over his shoulder. It slots into its place easily, and he walks over to where Silicon is squinting at the screen. So what's it look like? There was a weird bit of, Silicon says before looking up at Pavel. Right, okay, basically every step of the program is like a huge tree, right? You start at the tip, and by evaluating a situation, you go down one of the branches. Basically, it's like a plan flowchart. Is this happening? If yes, go this way. If no, then go down to the next question. A computer's processing speed lets it go through this fast, so it can keep up with reality. But only if you've got enough questions for all the things that happen. Right, well, that's where the virtual intelligence comes in, where it compares situations and while likely not understanding them, it does know how to mimic them. This is where you get things like chatbots or a video game enemy that seems to learn. It's almost learning, but it's not. Not really. That's what we're trying to get to, and we have the start of it. Did something go weird? I'm not sure yet. I think. Maybe yes? Maybe no? Silicon says as he turns the laptop to let Pavel see the lines up on lines of code. This is literally the drone's brain here. The thing is about an evolving program is that it can cause itself to bloat. That was the issue I was having yesterday and still today. Although it's not as big as it was yesterday now that we know there's hardware problems too. We put a lot of code into making these things balance, and now that we've solved the problem, how much of that can be taken out and how much has to be left in is going to be the work of weeks. Got it. You do? I'm a sniper. I have to focus on not only aiming for the target, but I have to accommodate for the wind drag at different temperatures and humidity levels, particles in the air like ash or dust, the gravity of the world I'm on, the movement of the target, and the things around them. To say nothing of the make of the weapon firing the bullet, and the make of the bullet itself. It's very much a science, Pavel says, pulling out his little book and handing it to Silicon. The formerly synthetic man looks through the small black book and sees rows upon rows of calculations without any answers written. He lets out a little hum before closing it and handing it back. I think I understand. Still, there's more to do, and not much more time to do it. This shift is about to end. It is, which means it's time for you to see all that dread math in motion. Oh no, not the dread math. Silicon's sarcasm could peel paint.